This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, September 26th show, bringing in expert advice and inside knowledge on today's events in our local economy and how it can affect your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but you can always call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. You can ask any questions of the guest I have in studio. You can go to the website and search almost any topic on money that you want, and most likely you will find one of my guest segments. So great guest always on the show, and I'm excited to have back in studio Vincent Humphrey with Humphrey Associates. Vincent, thank you so much for coming back in studio.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, taking us to commercial. I said, hopefully none of my listeners are getting divorced, but sometimes that does happen. And we did, last time I had you in studio, we talked about real estate and divorce proceedings. So that was a really interesting conversation I had a chance to talk with you about. And today we're going to focus on divorce and how to protect your assets, which is also pretty important if you're going through that. A little background on Vincent. Vincent is attorney at Humphrey Associates, which focuses on family law, real estate, and civil litigation. His passion is in bringing in justice and clarity for everyday working man and woman. Vincent was just awarded Outstanding Young Lawyer of the Year by Washington State Bar Association for 2015. I wouldn't make the Young Mortgage Professional of the Year, but maybe the getting closer to 50 Mortgage Professional of the Year. He is the only one out of 8,000 possible attorneys to gain this honor. And I think you last time, or congratulated you last time, Vincent, but congratulations again. What an award to receive. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vincent also holds a Juris Doctorate degree from University of Idaho College of Law, a Bachelor in Science, Political Science for University of Washington. He has over 15 years of mediation and negotiation training, which he has gained through intensive classes on the job situations. Vincent has advised companies and overseen transactions over 100 million. Furthermore, he's skilled set has allowed him to cancel many companies. Chair of Washington Young Lawyers Committee, where he leads a third of all lawyers in Washington State for career development and enhancement. So you like to provide back and provide educations to your colleagues, which is awesome as well, Vincent. So let's go ahead and start out with, let's just say one of my listeners is going through a divorce and may be asking, where do I even start when it comes to protecting my assets?
Absolutely. I think some of the best advice when it comes to this particular question is to have your end goal in mind. What is it that you're trying to get? What is it that you are trying to gain? What is your objective? Because if you don't have one, there's a lot of people that will give you their own personal advice, their own personal anecdotes, their own stories, and that might not fit your particular situation. So prioritizing what is most important and knowing what it is that you want to get out of that. That way, if you are seeking legal help or if you're going to be proceeding pro se or by yourself, you know what it is that you're trying to get and that you don't get mired in side squabbles or other things that aren't necessarily relevant to your overall objective. So starting with the end in mind, and also trying to articulate in your own mind as well as verbally, where do you want to see yourself after it's all over? How do you project yourself to be living? Where are you going to be living? So starting with the end in mind and then being able to take substantive steps to get to that objective.
Makes total sense. Like anything else that we do in our life, really taking a whole look of what that looks like and a whole picture to figure out the best things to do.
And it's really easy to get sucked into small things when you're dealing with your children or your house. It gets very personal. I say, it's not business. This is personal and beyond personal. And so being able to understand that those emotions and the things that you are feeling are very valid, but being able to try to step back as objectively as possible to see through that lens.
It makes total sense. So what can someone do, Vincent, to get some immediate protection on their assets?
Yeah, there are a couple different ways. One of them, there's a thing called ex parte, and all that means is really, for the person or for the people, and it allows you to go into the court, and It's a fancy way of saying that it is possible to be able to go into the court immediately and to seek temporary orders, temporary restraining orders, or if there is domestic violence at play, you can go and get a domestic violence protection order. And that's something, when I say immediate, I mean you can do that today if you are within the certain time frames of the court. Obviously, the court's not 24/7.
Sure.
But if you're in a situation where, you know, you need access to things or there are dangerous situations at play, you're able to go in front of a judge and say, I need a restraining order. I need this money protected. I need these bank accounts frozen. I need this person to stay away, or I need this particular access. And so those are things that can happen very immediate.
Okay. And so how do the courts determine, what are they looking at to determine who's going to get what?
Yeah. And, you know, we are a community property state, and I've said that before on the show. And so a lot of times that invokes the, well, isn't that just 50-50? It just split down the middle. But that's not the case. The courts look at a ton of different things when it comes to splitting assets, from real estate to pensions to retirement accounts. And they're looking at, well, how long have you been married, right? A marriage that's, let's say, 1 year is treated differently than a marriage of 35 years.
Makes sense.
They're looking at a spouse's contribution. So whereas one might have stayed home and been a homemaker and the other was working consistently, the courts understand that. And so they're looking at that as well. And so just because one party is working and the other might be taking care of the children or the family pets, the court looks at that. They're looking at education, background, credentials, the spouse that might not have been working, they're looking at what sort of marketable skills do they have. And they also understand that if you've been out of the market, so if there's a listener out there that says, you know, this is me, I haven't worked in about 15 years, I've stayed home, the kids are out of the house now, and I'm trying to now reconstruct my life thereafter, the courts understand that. And so they're going to look at, well, what is your background in? And if you haven't worked in a while, the court's going to look at that. So it's not necessarily as cut and dry as, well, it's 50-50 straight down the middle. And so, and also health. If you have a disability or something that is preventing you from being gainfully employed, the courts are going to consider that as well. So the court is trying to do...
So to make sense.
Yeah.
You know, really to see what makes sense and to really be there to make it fair for both parties as much as they can.
Yes. Yes.
So let's say that they, you know, you gotta go out there and fight, Vincent, to really get what you think is your fair share. Isn't that pretty spendy going through that process?
You know, I get that question a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Am I better off just letting it go, or should I fight this?
Right. Isn't there just a YouTube video that I can watch to figure this thing out, or a quick Google search? You know, again, people tend to dig their heels in on two major areas, and that's going to be their property or their kids, right? People say, hands up. It's all out war, and family members will support that, right? They'll loan money for the kids or the house. And so what I say is, again, it comes back down to your goals. I've had clients and I've seen in the court different people that don't really have a goal, and they make it more about the fight versus the outcome that they're trying to get, trying to hurt the other person via litigation versus if it's the house or if it is a certain amount of money that you're looking to receive. If you're going to be litigating that and spending that on attorneys, you're not necessarily in the best position. I won't say that litigation is always bad, because it absolutely has its merits. But again, understanding, is this something that I really want to get? And also, when it comes to how much are you spending, always educate yourself before you go, as much as possible, before you see an attorney, or if you are going into the courthouse, or even if you pay for a consultation with an attorney or a legal professional. It matters, because I've seen people, I kid you not, that have been to court 5, 6, 7 times because they couldn't figure out how to get something filed. And I'm saying, if you're taking off work and you're in that cycle, it would have made so much more sense to have sat down and had somebody show you. Absolutely. It matters so much. And you just frustrate the judges when they see you.
Of course. And you want the judges on your side.
As much as possible.
Yes, as much as possible. And, that's the whole, I'm glad that you mentioned in hiring expert advice. That's the whole purpose of this show. The reason I started the Money Hour, the reason it's called the Money Hour, is really to bring in elite, the best of the best experts in all area regarding my listeners' finances, because I believe that you have to hire an expert for all of these areas, because it's going to save you a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of stress. And especially when we're talking about going through something that's an emotional process as, going through a divorce. So what are some alternative options, Vincent, for my listeners rather than litigation?
Yeah. One of the
in protecting their assets.
Mm-hmm. One of the most streamlined is what's called a joinder, when two parties just simply agree. If you agree, the court's not going to get involved unless obviously there's a situation you can't agree to something that's criminal and say, hey, you want to do this, I want to do that too, let's agree to that. It's always hands off.
Has to be legal.
Absolutely.
Got it.
But if you have come together with your partner or spouse and you say, here's how I want to divide the property, if you get this share and you get this particular percentage, if that's fair between the two of you, the court is going to say, well, that's okay. You still have to wait the mandated 90 days before it can be finalized, but that is the most easy way. And so, that comes down to, are you giving away too much? Are you, negotiating against yourself? And that's, again, as you articulated earlier, where you might need to get a professional to say, hey, is this even fair?
Exactly.
But if you feel that it is, there's a form and it's called a joinder, and you sign, or the other person signs, and you say, all right, I'm in agreement 100% with everything that's here. You wait the mandated 90 days, you go in, and you guys are out of there. The other one is mediation. I'm a big advocate for mediation in certain situations, and that's just an opportunity for two people to sit down with a neutral third party and have hopefully their experience within family law, so they can give you kind of advice here and there as to what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And so mediation is something that I'd say, you should do it early and as often as possible. In fact, in King County and some of the others as well, it's mandated that you have alternative dispute resolution. And so I say the earlier you can get in to sit down with somebody and just walk through all of those issues, or as many as you can. Not that you're going to agree on everything, but if you start off with 50 different things that you can't agree to, and you can narrow that down to maybe 10 or 5, that cuts out so much litigation, because now you're concerned about 5 things versus 50.
Makes total sense. Now, what if assets get drained by this, the spouse prior to? I mean, how do you fix that? Or can you?
Well, if they've taken it, it's gone. Most likely it's gone. But what you want to do is, if you can document it, and if you can say, hey, we had this amount in this particular account, I know it's there. And you present that to the court, they're familiar with that as well. I've seen those situations where one spouse prepares for divorce and just drains all of the bank accounts. I'm
sure that happens more
all the time.
Often than, all
the time. And
so they're smart enough to go, okay, there was this money in here, and then the courts are going to make that right.
Absolutely. So what you want to do is be able to present that in front of a judicial officer, and they don't take too highly to those situations.
Yeah, I'm sure they would not. We've got a minute, and then I got to take us to break, Vincent. So, what would I want to leave my listeners with a tip here? What do you tell them to do?
We'll leave with this. If you've been thinking about, going through this, how should you prepare? A couple of things right here. You want to research the process, get as much education as you can before you see an attorney or somebody that you trust. So research as much as you can about the process. Come with your questions in hand and start with the end in mind. Thank you.
Great advice, Vincent. Thank you so much for coming back in studio. Look forward to having you again. My only attorney representative that I have come, outside of some estate planning, but I just appreciate your time so much.
So glad to be here, Tina. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Coming up next to the Money Hour, what should you ask a real estate professional before you actually hire them? Justin Richards with Keller Williams Realty Bellevue right here on 1150 AM KK and W after the short break.